People want a quick solution. The long-term solution here is to address the mental health issue. And one last thing about this, Shannon, and that is, it truly seems today that America is more divided than we've been in decades. And we got to find a way in this country where we can once again reunite Americans as Americans and come together as one big family. And in that regard, find ways to reduce violence in our country.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly divisions over any number of heated topics, including this one. I want to get to the border because
this is Texas Governor Greg Abbott reaching into the hat of excuses after this latest of an interminable barrage of mass shootings and landing this time on mental health. That's right, doors, video games, godlessness, and the non-nuclear family all got a little break today as Republicans spend this go-round pretending that the reason that so many mass shootings are happening in the only country on the planet with more guns than people is because apparently we're the only nation with mental health issues. Sound like bullshit? Yeah, that's probably because it is. Now, let's be crystal clear. This is not to say that mental health does not play a role in mass shootings, but the United States doesn't have a monopoly on mental health issues. Just like we don't have a monopoly on video games or doors or non-nuclear families or godlessness. But what we do have a monopoly on are guns. We've got half of the world's guns right here for just 5% of the world's population. So if you're out there pretending that this isn't a gun problem, then congratulations, you're doing your part to protect the very phenomenon responsible for all this bloodshed. But since Greg Abbott brought it up, let's talk about mental health for a moment. If that's the principal cause of these mass shootings, then why hasn't he addressed that issue? Why has Greg Abbott cut more than $200 million from mental health programs over the last 2 years in just his state alone? According to CNN, Abbott cut more than $117 million from the state's Health and Human Services Commission, which oversees mental health services, in 2021, and another $93 million in 2022. In fact, mental health care access isn't just bad in Texas, it is among the absolute worst in the entire United States, with Texas ranking 50 out of 51 territories. All of which is to say, when people like Greg Abbott blame mental health, they're not actually interested in fixing anything related to mental health, they're just looking for any excuse not to blame the guns. And why might they not want to blame the guns? Because they are paid not to. Texas Republicans have taken over $14 million from gun rights groups, more than lawmakers in any other state. And the NRA spent more on state-level lobbying in Texas than any other state in the 19 states tracked by Open Secrets, with over $2.5 million in spending. And Texas's Senator Ted Cruz has drawn $750,000, making him the top recipient of political donations from gun groups, meaning that dead kids is a price that Texas Republicans are very clearly willing to pay if it means they get to keep cashing in their checks. They're not there to protect their constituents' lives, they're there to protect their political careers. And so what we're left with is a pattern so clear a child could see it. Republicans and their insistence on pandering to the gun lobby and their extremists within their party have enabled a gun violence epidemic in this country. Here's a map of the firearm rate by state. Look familiar? 9 of the top 10 states with the highest firearm death rate are all red states, and 9 of the top 10 states with the lowest firearm death rate are all blue states. This is not an accident, it is the direct result of policy. Republicans have adopted a policy of mass sacrifice, and the numbers bear that out. And that's a point that Jamie Raskin made perfectly clear during our most recent interview.
You know, he speaks the party line there, which is when gun violence happens, their go-to motto is, oh, this was evil. This is moral evil. There's evil in the world. Suddenly, they're all like cloistered theologians just pronouncing upon evil in the world, as opposed to elected officials who are sent to Congress in order to get something done, but they just throw up their hands and say, well, oh, yes, 3 more school children were assassinated in school. There's evil in the world. C'est la vie. What more can be done? I mean, it's obscene. And future generations will look back on this as a period where an entire political party basically adopted an implicit policy of mass sacrifice, because they're basically saying, we're going to sacrifice all of these innocent people who are being mowed down in massacres and just the daily toll of gun violence to our vision of the Second Amendment, which is a completely twisted and distorted view of the Second Amendment.
And just one more point on what Greg Abbott said in the initial clip, that America is divided and the way to reduce violence, meaning gun violence, is to come together. Only one small problem: the reason that America is divided is literally because people like Greg Abbott are allowing Americans to get slaughtered in order to pander to the gun lobby without doing anything to stop it. America isn't just divided in a vacuum, there is a reason. This is like if a slave owner decried the hostility between the North and South as if his existence wasn't the literal cause of the hostility. And let's be perfectly clear here, there will be no unity until and unless the people whose job it is to reduce gun violence stop pandering to the gun manufacturers and start taking steps to keep Americans alive. So look, we can have this argument 1,000 times. We can show that this is the only country on the planet where this happens. We can show that this is the only country with this many guns. We can show that this is the only country with lax gun laws. But none of that matters to these Republicans, because it's not that they don't understand these facts, because they do. It's that they are not willing to listen. In fact, they're so owned by the gun lobby and the extremists in their party that they're not even willing to listen to the majority of their own party. According to a new Fox News poll, in terms of the favorability of common sense gun safety reforms, 87% of Americans support background checks, 81% support raising the age of purchase to 21, 80% support a mental health check requirement, 80% support red flag laws, 77% support a 30-day waiting period. That is majorities in both parties. Elected Republicans are now more extreme than even their own party, and yet still they have no desire to actually do anything about it. And so clearly, the solution here is not to try to publicly shame them, because they cannot be shamed. The solution, the only solution, is to vote them out. Think about it. If dead kids aren't enough to elicit any type of a change here, nothing will be. These people are immovable. They are bought and paid for. They are owned by the gun lobby. They are not there to protect you or your kids. They are there to serve the people who fund their campaigns, and that's not you, it's the NRA. So I know that it's annoying and reductive to listen to me say, well, we gotta vote, but that is our one tool. We don't have any other tools. Shame won't work. Public airing of dirty laundry won't work. Dead constituents won't work. Our vote is all we have. And if you don't think that tool is potent, keep in mind all of the steps that Republicans are taking to prevent you from doing it. They're blocking voting on college campuses. They're preventing students from using student IDs as forms of identification. They're eliminating polling places in minority-majority precincts. They're gerrymandering congressional districts. So if you doubted how powerful your vote is, just look at the steps that they're taking to take that vote away. And one last thing here. I know that with these shootings, it is so incredibly easy to get discouraged. I do it. There are days where I don't even want to touch my phone because it's all just too depressing. But I would caution against disengaging, because if you give up, then Republicans win, and we lose our opportunity to pass any meaningful federal gun safety legislation. The fact is that Republicans actually benefit from these shootings, because the more they happen, the more likely it is that the rest of us will just surrender to that despair, which means that they don't have to worry about the threat of legislation, especially on a federal level. So my plea to you is this: do not let them win. Do not give the worst people exactly what they want. And yes, that means that we have to keep fighting and we have to stay engaged and clear-eyed through these horrific tragedies. But if that means that we hold on to the possibility that we can pass legislation to do something about it, then that is what we have to do. Republicans want nothing more than to watch you give up. So please do not give them the satisfaction. Before you go, I need your help. I'm right on the cusp of hitting 2 million subscribers, so please help me grow this channel so the progressive media ecosystem grows by hitting the subscribe button right here on the screen. I also started a Spanish channel so we can finally start regaining some of that lost ground among Spanish speakers, so if you want to help support those efforts, you can hit that subscribe button. And finally, if you listen to podcasts and you want to support mine, you'll find a link to that on the screen as well. Thanks so much for watching.